All right, let's jump right in. We're going to break down the conclusion to one of the most famous, most powerful speeches ever given, the Sermon on the Mount. And we're going to look at it through the lens of Dr. Bill Mounce's analysis, because Jesus wraps this whole thing up with a series of really stark choices that honestly demand a response from every single person who hears it. And let's be real for a second. The standards Jesus lays out in this sermon, loving your enemies, not judging people, they're incredibly high. As Dr. Mounce just puts it bluntly, this stuff is hard. And Jesus knows this. He's not clueless. He understands he's setting a standard that feels almost impossible, which is the perfect setup for why he immediately pivots to the topic of prayer.
So is Jesus just setting us up to fail? Not at all. He recognizes that on our own steam, we can't live up to these standards. It's just not going to happen. So right away, he gives us the solution. He points to the source of strength we need to even have a shot at this. And that solution, that power source, is prayer.
When Jesus talks about prayer here, the language he uses is so important. In the original Greek, the verbs for ask, seek, and knock aren't about a one-and-done request. They actually imply a continuous, ongoing action. Like you just keep asking, you keep seeking, you keep knocking. It's all about perseverance. But you know what? What happens when you're doing all that? And it feels like you're just getting radio silence. Well, Dr. Mounce tells this fantastic story about a guy who eventually became a Top Gun pilot. When he was just 12 years old, he prayed with everything he had for a wagon for Christmas. I mean, he was convinced he was going to get it. But Christmas morning comes and no wagon. So he tries again the next year, praying just as hard. Still no wagon. And right then and there, he just decided, that's it. I'm done with prayer. Okay, now fast forward almost 2 decades. This kid is now a 30-year-old man, an elite pilot strapped into a multi-million-dollar fighter jet, literally ripping through the sky at twice the speed of sound. He's living a life that his 12-year-old self could not have even imagined. And in that exact moment, flying that jet, he hears this clear thought pop into his head. How do you like your wagon? The point is just so powerful, right? Every prayer is answered, but it's almost always in God's time and in ways we could never, ever expect. So once he's established that we absolutely need this divine help, Jesus brings the entire sermon to this incredible climax. He presents what he calls a series of twos, a bunch of powerful metaphors that force every listener, then and now, to make a choice. There's just no sitting on the fence. And the first choice is between two paths. Just picture this in your mind for a second. On one side, you've got this huge, wide-open gate. It leads to a 6-lane superhighway. It's easy, it's popular, it's crowded with people, but it leads to destruction. And then, on the other side, there's this tiny, narrow gate, almost hidden. The path on the other side is rough, unpaved, difficult, and pretty lonely. But that hard road, that's the one that leads to life. And this imagery just perfectly captures what Dr. Mounce says is the core problem in so much of the modern church. A lot of people treat going through that gate, that initial moment of belief, like it's a get-out-of-hell-free card. They think once they're through, the hard work, that difficult path of discipleship that's supposed to follow, is somehow optional. But Jesus could not be clearer. The gate and the path are a package deal. But wait, there's more. Jesus warns that this difficult path isn't just hard because it takes effort. No, it's also filled with some serious dangers you've got to watch out for, and he highlights 2 of them specifically. Okay, so danger number 1, false prophets. Mounce paints a vivid picture here. They're like ferocious wolves dressed up in sheik's clothing. They look the part, they sound the part, but on the inside, they are destructive. So how do you spot them? Well, Jesus says it's not by their clever speeches or their charisma. You'll know them by their fruit, by the actual outcome of their lives and their teachings. They're the ones telling you, hey, don't worry about it. The gate's not that narrow, and the path is actually a nice, easy drive. The second danger is, to be honest, even more terrifying, and that's the self-deceived. See, these aren't bad guys trying to trick you. These are people who genuinely think they're on the right team, and they've got a resume to prove it. They can point to all these spectacular things. Lord, didn't we prophesy in your name, cast out demons, do miracles? But Jesus' response to them, man, it is absolutely bone-chilling. He doesn't even argue about the miracles. He just says, I never knew you. And that reveals this terrifying truth. Doing spectacular public things for God is no substitute for actually knowing him, for having a real relationship, and for simple obedience.
Dr. Mounce uses a great allegory here from the classic book Pilgrim's Progress to really hammer this home. There's a character named Ignorance who walks the entire difficult path all the way to the celestial city. He does all the hard work, but when he gets there, he's turned away. He's cast into hell from the very gates of heaven. Why? Because he tried to find a shortcut at the beginning and never actually went through the proper gate. You see, you need both. You need the gate and the path. So all of this, the path, the dangers, the choices, it all leads to Jesus's final summarizing metaphor. He boils the entire choice down to one powerful, unforgettable image: building a house. You've got two builders, and on the surface, their houses might look exactly the same. The only real difference is the foundation, the one part you can't see. The wise builder, he hears Jesus's words and he actually does them. He builds on solid rock. The foolish builder, he hears the exact same words, but he doesn't act on them. He builds on sand. And it's only when the storms of life come smashing in that you see the truth. One house stands firm, the other is completely destroyed.
Mounce shares this incredibly moving story of what this looks like for real. A father literally watched his own daughter get killed by a driver. And in that moment of just unimaginable pain, the biggest storm of his life, his first immediate response was to quote the book of Job: "The Lord gives, the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." Now, that kind of response doesn't just materialize out of thin air. That's the result of a lifetime of building a foundation, of hearing and doing day in and day out.
So here's the bottom line. The Sermon on the Mount was never meant to just be some beautiful philosophy that we admire from a safe distance. It's a blueprint for the house that every single one of us is building. It is a call to action. And it all ends with this simple, unavoidable difference between two kinds of people: those who hear and those who hear and do. Ultimately, this whole incredible sermon funnels down to this single, very personal question. When the storms come, and you know they will come, what is your foundation built on? Is it built on just hearing, or is it built on doing?